so excited to be back with you again this week. Thanks for coming back to episode number 9 here. We are super excited to be here with you again today. And welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Two Poets, the show where we write poetry, talk about poetry, and then also talk about all things creative.
Yes.
That's what we love to do. And I am Corey, and this is Ben, and we're just so glad you decided to click on the YouTube video or find us on Spotify, Apple Music, all that good stuff. So we're glad you're here.
Hello.
Hello,
Welcome.
Ben.
How's it going?
Good. First off, you may have noticed if you've been following this podcast religiously, we have been kind of going on a every other week schedule at the moment. We've just been kind of moving some things around. Storms got in the way one week.
Yes.
Ben had to start a new job,
Jeez, this guy. Who is this guy?
But we're just going to kind of fill it out, I mean, we're creative people. It's not like we're the most organized people. Yeah, you can't be organized and creative at the same time.
We adapt. That's what we do.
We adapt.
We adapt more than we create. So
yeah, so we may stay every other week or we may get back in the groove of doing every week. Either way, we're going to be putting episodes out.
Yeah, we're going to figure it out.
Awesome. So anything new been going on with you the past couple weeks?
Man, doing a lot of driving.
Listen
to a lot of audiobooks.
You have an hour and a half commute there and then an hour and a half commute back.
Yeah, thankfully I have family there, so I drive down, like on Thursday I'll drive down, spend the night, work Friday, come back. So it works out pretty good.
Good.
But Mondays, drive down, drive back. So it's not bad. It's a pretty boring drive, and it's a pretty straight shot. So
do you go to the interstate or do you go through like Kingfisher and
I kind of
Hennessy?
switch it up every so often. Lately, I've been going through Kingfisher and Hennessy and all those places. But sometimes I'll go 35 and just go that whole way. So I kind of switch it up a little bit.
That's good. Yeah. The thing about going to OKC from here is there's literally like 4 routes you can take.
Yeah.
Depending on what part of the city you want to end up in.
It's nice to have options.
Yeah. So yeah, I can see that. Just change it up every time so you're not getting bored of the same drive.
And it doesn't matter which way you go. It's about the same time frame.
Yeah, it really
either
is.
way. So it doesn't matter at all. That's nice.
Kind of weird how that happens, but
yeah. So it's a good time though. It gives me a chance to get caught up on audiobooks and any news stories that I want to listen to. So it's good.
Yeah. What's the most recent audiobook you've been listening to?
I just finished The Road by Cormac McCarthy. And Hogan and I were going to be doing that for our podcast. And so I listened to the audiobook and then we're going to watch the movie. And then we'll do a little episode about the movie too. So
cool.
We did that with the book Somewhere in Time by Richard Matheson. So we read the book and then we watched the movie and then we had 2 different episodes, one talking about the book, one talking about the movie, and it was very fun. Yeah.
That's cool.
So we're going to try to do more of that stuff. So
I like that.
I think it's going to be a good time. Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah.
What's up with you?
With me? Well,
besides getting your hair cut.
Oh yeah, I got my hair cut. So as you watching, my hair is no longer super long. It's been over 100 degrees and rainy and swampy every day here. So I kind of got sick of it and went back to the short, clean cut look.
It looks good.
It feels I can feel the wind on my neck now and it feels great.
You're standing outside in the breeze.
Yeah, it's still too stupid hot, but at least it's a little more bearable now.
Yeah.
So I got a haircut. Also found out that one of my old bands is getting back together.
I saw you posting some teasers.
Yeah, so I bought a bunch of... So I had sold a lot of my music gear because I just hadn't been playing music. And a lot of us guys just kind of went on, did other things. And then there's just been talks the past couple weeks. And so we're like, all right, we're going to get the band back together. Basically, it's a band called Boys Home.
Okay.
One member lives in Oklahoma City. I live here in Enid, and another member lives in Kansas City.
Nice.
Right now. So we're going to kind of coordinate all that. If you like emo punk rock, you'll love this.
Yes.
Awesome. I bought a whole bunch of new bass gear because I'm playing bass for that band. And so I'm super excited about that. Getting back into some music.
That's exciting, dude. I'm excited for you.
That's probably the biggest creative thing in me that I have.
Yeah.
Besides writing and creating stories. So I'm super excited to get back into that. It's going to feed my soul very well.
Yes, that's going to be so much fun. The band's getting back together. We're on a mission from God.
Yeah, so that's kind of what's been up with me. And so this week we're actually going to kind of change things up on this episode. We, as you remember from last episode, we did not draw a a prompt for a poem, a user submitted poem, because this week we kind of wanted to share our poems and our, creative hearts with you and kind of read from our books and some of our writings. And then we'll kind of discuss those poems that we read today and also talk about our processes as writers and kind of how we come up with things and the struggles we go through when it comes to writing. So, not to sound conceited, but this episode is all about us today.
All about us.
All about us. And next week we'll get back to you guys. But no, we hope that this also, encourages you and you can kind of take some of what we've done, what we've gone through, and, maybe it'll benefit you, or maybe be like, I've heard it all. I don't need to do what they do. It's a terrible way they do it.
Right. These guys, we've heard it all before. No, I think it'll be fun to be able to talk through our processes. It's really cool to be able to read something for people and then give them the story behind it. Because most times people read it and all they see is face value.
Exactly.
So it's nice to be able to give a little bit of insight into where your head was or your process, or your thought process. So
yeah, and what's going to be funny is so I'm reading out of Parking Lot Poetry. I wanted to read out of this book because it was my first published book.
Yeah.
And it was in 2014, so almost 10 years old. So I'm going to be on the fly trying to remember the thought process and what was going through my mind when I wrote these poems. So
that's awesome.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of those as I read it.
I like how both of our books have a similar moody vibe to them.
A very kind of gray washed. Yep. What's the back look like?
The back? Oh, that's kind of the same.
Still kind of the same. Yeah, kind of
it's
that
actually
gray
got
wash.
kind of similar. That's sick, dude.
We're both so moody.
I know. Moody artists.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So buckle up, everybody, and get ready to be serenaded by our words.
Hopefully you're not bored by our words.
I guess I'll go first.
Do it.
So I was kind of telling Ben with this first book was in my phase of short writings. So I liked a lot more of the short, quick poetry. So a lot of these are more short form poems and not terribly super long. So we're each probably going to read about 3 poems and kind of talk about them. And then, we'll call that our episode today. So I think I will start with, I kind of bookmarked some poems in here. Let's go with, okay. This one is called Yellow Spider.
Ooh, sweet. Okay.
And I actually stole a line from a song off of here, but I'll explain that later. Okay. This one's called Yellow Spider from my book, Parking Lot Poetry. A yellow spider, or maybe yellow leaves, can one really see a sunset through the trees? It's okay to ask. This West Coast dream where the sun does set feels so great with the sand between my toes. Heaven knows I feel all right. But awakened under this Midwest sky, you wonder what it could be like to try to do more than sit and think and dream, but to fly. So fly away with the wings you have made of broken emotions and tears you've paid to just see the sunrise for once today. When you find the place you have only seen in dreams and you are wondering what comes next, never forget the memories and never forget to think of me. And that one is Yellow Spider.
Yellow Spider.
Yellow Spider.
I love it.
So there's this band called Me Without You.
Oh, yeah.
And they have a song called Yellow Spider, Orange Spider. And I think there's another spider. So on a lot of their albums, they would have a spider song. And
that's awesome.
And one of the lyrics was yellow spider, yellow leaf. And so I kind of stole that to start this poem, a yellow spider, or maybe yellow leaves. I kind of did that as a nod to Lauren because she loves that band. So I was I'm going to start this poem with that kind of that line so she can be like, ooh.
That's awesome. Were you writing a lot of these while you were traveling?
Yes.
Okay.
So a lot of these while I was cooped up in a 15-passenger van with 4 other smelly dudes traveling around playing music. It's
the life, right?
It's the life right there. Sleeping in Walmart parking lots. That's why it was called Parking Lot Poetry, because we were sleeping in Walmart parking lots.
Nice.
So a lot of it was traveling. And so a lot of these were just kind of the ideas and concepts that I would write down. And then when I was off of tour is when I would sit and kind of refine them and take those concepts and ideas and refine it into better writing for the book. So a lot of these are just scribbled in notebooks and
I love it.
Stuff while on tour. So yeah. And yeah, Yellow Spider was kind of talking about, wanting the life of, this West Coast lifestyle of just nonchalant, caring, feeling the sand in your toes, the beautiful, the sunset in the West Coast, right? Yeah, sunsets on the West Coast, but living your Midwest lifestyle, living in middle America, and how it's,
Yeah.
you can still kind of have that feeling, even though it's not exactly that feeling you want because you're kind of idolizing somewhere else, but you can still have that where you're at,
Yeah, totally.
You don't have to be somewhere to have a specific feeling, although they do invoke emotions and feelings. You can still have that where you're at. It's just a matter of changing the way you look at things.
Nice.
It's kind of talking about that.
I love it.
All right, let's go to a different one here. I don't remember this one, but I saw the title and I was like, I think this was a good one. This one is called Love and Hate. Okay. So I'm going to actually... Some of these I intentionally didn't read because I wanted to re-experience them while I read it. Okay, this one's called Love and Hate. Nothing scares me more than the blank page. Am I ready to be that vulnerable, to pen my deepest secrets, to relive my regrets? A permanent reminder that will never let me forget how much pain my heart has been through. Or am I looking at this all wrong? Nothing makes me more excited than a blank page. Scarring paper with ink about love and life, like remembering that first kiss, being reminded of the ones you miss, smiling of the thought that one day they might be reading this. Yes, nothing scares me more than a blank page. Did I tell the story right? Should I have included that stupid fight that we had that one time at that one place? Maybe now it will shed some light on my own thoughts. Yes, this blank page can be your enemy, but then again, it can be your friend.
Yeah.
I think that one's a little self-explanatory.
I like that one. That's good, man.
Yeah, that one's kind of the, it's a struggle we all go through, right? The struggle of the blank page, the struggle of, okay, fresh start. Have a million ways it can go.
Yeah.
That minute you sit down to write and you're like, all right, I'm going to get some thoughts out. It's like, well, happy thoughts, sad thoughts, fun thoughts, scary thoughts, or
no
do I tell
thoughts.
that story? Yeah, no thoughts. Do I tell that story I had yesterday? Do I write about that experience I had 2 years ago? Or do I write about love? Do I write about loss? And just that feeling like it can be very scary, but at the same time, it can be very exciting.
Yeah.
Because, oh, wait, now I get to start something new. Now I get to write a new story. Now I get to tell something. And that love and hate relationship between creating, it's very push and pull.
There can be a lot of fear with fresh start.
Yeah.
For sure. Because sometimes you can be in a really crappy situation, but the situation. So it's easier to stay in it than it is to turn a page and start over.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a really relatable one. I like that.
Yeah, and I think I wrote this one. I wasn't on tour when I wrote this one. I remember, like I said, it's all coming back to me. I remember that I wrote this one when I was trying to finish this book. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna actually put everything into a book. And then I was like, I need at least 4 or 5 more poems to finish it out.
Yeah.
And then I struggled the most with those last 4 or 5 poems. And I was like, why was it easier for me to write when I was on the road? But I was like, well, I was actually experiencing things, and every day there was something new. And then when I would sit down and force myself to write was when I was just staring at the cursor blinking, on the screen. It's like, well, I don't know what to write about, or I do, but I'm scared to put that first line down because what if I want to come back and make that first line my 4th line or my 2nd paragraph? Then I got to go back,
totally.
And so it is a struggle, but I think if you look at it as an exciting endeavor rather than a scary endeavor, it might change the way you kind of write and think about it.
Absolutely. Man, there's always the temptation too to be like, I don't want to force it.
Yeah,
I just want inspiration to come, and then you never write anything. But yeah.
All right. And so I'm going to read. Okay, yeah. So this is another short one. This one's called My Constant Failure. And I remember writing this one in the back of the van. It was probably 2 a.m. And I remember just laying in the back, just sitting up at night, doing some reading. And And then I remember writing this one down. So
Nice.
this one's called My Constant Failure. As dry as the Oklahoma Dust Bowl has become my soul, in desperate need of the tiniest drop of moisture. I find myself here more often than I wish. Oh God, where have you been? I've been screaming my lungs out and drowning in sin. I have been wandering this desert in circles and I see no sign of stopping. Every sign of hope has turned into a mirage that reminds me of my desperate need for help. Where is my Savior? Have you forgotten me? Maybe I'm the one who forgot about you.
That's a very relatable one.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, I was at that point in my life, which, I mean, I've had that struggle up and down throughout, but I remember specifically that point in my life, I was really struggling with, you know, my faith, is my faith real? Is it something that's wrong with me? Is it wrong with, you know, my faith? Like I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
I just felt dry. I was like, there was times where I feel this high and I'd be here, you know, constantly super excited about my faith. And then there'd be times I'd be down here and it's like, I feel like I'm in the middle of a desert and there's just like nothing and I feel no support. I feel, you know, lost. And so I was at that point and what's crazy is like, I remember when I was at that point, I felt like I shouldn't be feeling like this because I am constantly meeting new people and we're encouraging each other. We're having these great talks and I'm getting to talk with kids every night and learning about all these different people. And I'm like, that should be exciting me. But that was when I was feeling the driest and just like, I don't know like what my life is anymore, you know, and just sometimes those thoughts and they just creep in and it's like, you don't even know where it comes from, you know?
It's a weird thing, isn't it? Like you finally get to the place where you're doing the thing that not only the thing you want to do, but the thing you believe you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And in the middle of that, you get into the work and you can feel very alone and empty, surrounded by all these people and all these things going on. And it's just an interesting place. When I feel like sometimes when you get so introspective on your faith or your beliefs or your convictions, then there's guilt that comes with that because you see how short you fall of your convictions or something, or you see all these ways that you're not living up to your own expectations. And it's weird how you can be in the thick of it. And then that guilt is still there. And it's just something you have to find ways to process through and not let the guilt like drag you down and make you believe you're something that you're not, you know?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Exactly.
But man, I love that. You have a very melodic tone to your poetry. Yeah. And when I got Parking Lot Poetry, I read through it and it's very like, I like the feeling just from the title, the parking lot aspect, but it has a very nomadic feeling to it. Yeah. Which I really enjoyed. And you have a lot of relatable content in there. There are moments in there that I'm like, dude, I totally get that. Yeah. The love-hate one especially. Like I remember reading that one. Nice. And yeah, man, I just really enjoy it.
Yeah, and I actually remember like when I first published it, like a lot of the reviews I got like on Goodreads and like Amazon and stuff where they were talking like about the relatability with a lot of the poems. It's not all these like abstract, far-fetched like ideas and like fantasy type poetry. They're like, no, that's very relatable. I get that. I feel what you're talking about. You know, that's what I want to write. That's a lot of how I want to write. Like everything I write is there needs to be some form of relatability. Unless I'm writing Dungeons and Dragons stuff, that's more fantasy concept. But I'm talking about like, you know, when I'm writing stories and I'm writing poetry, I want there to be that relatability that someone can see themselves in that poem and be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that person's feeling, or, oh, I've been there, or I've never been there, but I know someone who that fits. Yeah. You know,
totally. It should be something where anybody can pick it up and read it and find something in there they can connect to, whether they like poetry or not. Yeah. And that's, I feel it should be kind of the goal, at least for a modern poet. I mean, you have people that they have their own style and their own unique thing they're going for, or their own artistic spin or something. Yeah. But I think on average, if you're going to write and publish, you should be able to convey in some way feelings that people can connect to, that they can grab onto, and that they can relate to, because like you said, they're going to see themselves, or they're going to see someone, and they're going to take that work and like attach part of that to themselves, and find some identity in that. And I think that's really important. So I'm with you on that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's important. And like, yeah, for sure. And then a lot of like my writing, whenever I do write, I don't really have a routine, when it comes to writing. It's just typically like, today I feel like writing. So, let me back that up. Because I don't want it to sound like I'm only writing when I feel like writing.
Yeah, I know what you mean though.
So I don't have like a 8 a.m. blah, 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 8 a.m. to this time I'm writing. Typically when I write, I will sit on my computer late at night. But some days I'm just like, man, I'm really feeling it today. So I'll go to Da Vinci's, a coffee shop here in town, and I'll put my headphones on. And I'll sit there for 3 hours and just write.
Yeah.
Or I'll stare at the page for an hour and then write for 15 minutes and then
I think
do that.
Yeah, that's the feeling, is like, not that you feel like writing, but it's like, I feel like laboring.
Yeah.
I feel like putting in the work today.
Yeah, exactly.
You can write anytime, but there's something about that where you're like, I'm just going to go sit and write somewhere for a while.
Some days you're just like extra like, oh yeah, it's going to be a good day today. Like I'm going to put in a few more hours.
Totally.
But yeah, I'll typically try to at night when I'm working on 3 or 4 different projects and alternating. I just try to make it a habit of at least writing every other day, or something, even if it's just a line or two, just try to get something out. Yeah. And then, like I said, then there'll be those days where it's like, I'm feeling really good today, so I'm going to go to the coffee shop and I'm going to write a whole bunch of stuff.
I wish that was every day.
Yeah. Like last night, I was up till like 2 a.m. last night. I started about 10 p.m. and I was up till 2 a.m. So I threw another project upon myself. So I am writing and creating a tabletop role-playing game, like a whole new like system and everything. So, like Dungeons and Dragons or Monster of the Week or Pathfinder, those are all different systems. And so I'm writing and creating my own tabletop role-playing game system. And then I'm like fleshing out like characters and like what the world's going to look like for scenarios for people, and like coming up with character creations and world creations and like what settings you can do this in. And so I stayed up, from like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. last night, just working on that. And I was like, that's awesome. Got a lot knocked out. And I was like, man, that was like the greatest feeling when you get so much work knocked out.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude. Do you have any kind of, you may not want to talk too much about it, but do you have any kind of like expected time frame on when you want to get that completed?
So this one, I'm not putting any like timeline on myself, I'm kind of just like,
good for you.
This is a side thing that I want to do, and it'll get done eventually.
Sweet.
So, but when I'm having those moments of like, oh, I'm putting in the work tonight, then I was like, I have like 5 hours of work, and then those are the nights I'm like, okay, cool, and then I might not touch it for 2 weeks. Yeah. Because I'm working on 10 other projects that I need to devote my time to. Yeah. And then when I'm like, okay, I don't have anything to devote my time to, I'm going to work back on this again. I'm trying to give myself the freedom with this project to not have to have it done by October or have to have it done by September.
Good for you, man. Good to balance and give yourself the creative license and also the freedom to not feel guilty about not working on it every week. If you're not able to.
And so that's working for me. Everyone's different. And I think for me, that's great because I used to give myself, like, if I give myself a deadline, I'll get it done. But then you don't meet those deadlines. And then you're so pissed at yourself and you feel defeated. And it's like,
or you don't put out your best work because you're like, I have to make this happen.
It's like, but who said you have to have it done by that time?
Right.
Well, I do. Yeah, but you don't have to set it out to the world at that time. It's not a publisher telling you it has to be done by this date. It's yourself. It's like, give yourself some grace.
Have some grace, man. Make it the best that you can possibly make it. And when it gets out, it gets out.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. So yeah, that's Parking Lot Poetry. That's some of my poems, and that's kind of my process and how I do things. And I'm a little bit all over the place, but like I said, I try to dedicate time every now and then, even if it's a sentence here or 5-hour block here. Give yourself some time to work on things. So
awesome, man.
Yeah. Let's hear from you now. Take the attention off of me.
So this is my debut book that I published July of last year.
Yeah.
So it's 1 year old this month. And
Gosh, it's already been a year.
It's been a year.
I feel like I just bought it.
I know, it's crazy. I feel like I just wrote it. So it's really weird how that goes. And in keeping with the theme, the first poem I'm going to read is called Time Flies. This poem is actually one that I wrote about my wife before she was my wife. And it worked well enough to incorporate it into the book.
Nice.
And so I went ahead and kind of did that, and I didn't have to change anything for it to fit the narrative of the book. It just kind of exists as itself. So, this is Time Flies. It's 12:40 a.m. on a Thursday. She left about 15 minutes ago. I'm lounging in this empty orange atmosphere, listening to Smokey Robinson, thinking of her. The song Time Flies plays through a vintage dial radio, his smooth whispered lyrics filling the room. Whenever she leaves, whether it's an hour afterwards or a simple 3 minutes, it always feels like she's still here. I feel her delicate presence, hear her pen stretching across its parchment playground, see her hair pulled up in a knot, a few rebel strands dangling over her forehead, reaching for her nose. I sense her in the chair across from me, buried in an Italian book, the language blanketing her mind, time a distant stranger, never entering her thoughts until he draws close enough to steal her attention back, reminding her that life goes on outside her head, like the countryside beyond a train car window. I dream of her next to me every night. In my dream, she's always looking back at me, like she's rested there for hours, waiting for me to roll over, open my eyes and notice her. She occupies my mind, and every time I close my eyes, I still see glimpses of her, random snapshots my head captures throughout the day. The way she looked, with my jacket draped over her shoulders like a robe, the python sleeves swallowing her hands, the collar up around her neck. The way she sits, her back sculpted smoothly down into her hips. The way she leans down to kiss me when I'm working at my desk, always stopping first to look me in the eyes and say she loves me with all of her heart. It's no wonder I have such a hard time falling asleep at night. All I want to do is remember, play the glimpses of her over and over in my head to my heart's delight and longing.
Nice.
That is Time Flies.
Time Flies.
When on our wedding day, I had a bunch of poems that I had written, and either they were about her or they were about us. And so on our wedding day, I had them all put together in a book, and that was like a gift that I gave her right before we got married. So
very cool.
That was one of the poems in there, and I had titled that book that I gave her Time Flies. So that was kind of the title piece of that one. I was really proud of that. So
yeah, I like how, I mean, obviously, the thing I think I like about your writing the most is you're very good at descriptions. You know, at describing scenes, describing the area you are in, you know, and I feel like you do that really well in a very creative way.
Thanks, man.
And I also like when people, like when you said Smokey Robinson was on the radio or playing, you know, through the speaker. I love it when people actually name something specific and not just be like jazz was playing through the speaker, you know, or
yes, blues, I always enjoy that. I always enjoyed reading people who actually did what they said they did. So like in Don Miller's Blue Like Jazz book, he talks about being on the street and listening to some guy play jazz, you know, and he never liked jazz until he listened to it, you know, and it's a scene that he's in and it takes you there. But then later in the book, he mentions, you know, other things. He'll mention like culturally relevant people or music or whatever. And writers that do that, I feel like it gives you kind of a good connection with them.
Exactly.
And so you're like, oh, cool.
Or, yeah.
I also really appreciate someone talking about something that maybe I'm not familiar with, because then I want to go back and listen to it.
Yeah,
I'm like,
or
oh,
look
I've
it
not
up
heard of
and
that.
read
I'm going to
about
go
it.
check that out.
Yeah.
So I always like doing that because it adds some kind of just like cultural awareness of where we are, you know, and what we're doing. And that something about that just really appeals to me. So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm sure Hogan was very touched by that present you gave her.
Just a little bit. I mean, she did say yes, so that was good. Of course, that was after we already were engaged, but you know.
And then she read it and she was like, you're a terrible writer. Why am I doing this?
She was like, what is this? I've already written a full-fledged novel. What is this? No, that was a really cool thing. That was my first actual book, if we want to be specific. So
yeah, I guess technically.
Yeah. This next one is called Empty Doorways. And this is based off of a real life incident that we had. In the book, in Say It Softly, the main couple, the character, they're unnamed, but the guy is a photographer and he's kind of an artist in that sense. And that actually worked out really well because Hogan is a photographer in real life, and I always wanted to get into photography, and so she gave me a gift. It was a film camera. And so we went out and tried to take some pictures and figure it out because it was made in like the 70s.
Nice.
And so we figured it out. And this is based off of that, just characters reversed, because in the story, he's the one photographing. In real life, it was her, you know, because she knew what she was doing and I didn't. So, but yeah, it worked out really good. And it fit into the book nicely and kind of fit into the narrative that I had. So this one is called Empty Doorways. She stood beneath the tree, her eyes gazing into mine, a red overcoat draped about her, cherry blossoms overhead. I focused the lens of my Calamar SR200 35mm camera, a gift from her. She came into focus, and beauty filled my eye. Click. I lingered a moment, soaking in her image, cherishing her poise, her frame, her stance, her smiling eyes. That's going to be a favorite, I marveled, lowering the lens. I can't wait to see it, she gleamed with excitement. We shot the rest of the film over the next couple of weeks, then sent it off to be developed. When the package finally arrived, we happily tore the tape away. We'd waited so long to view the images, and now we opened the cardboard flaps and stared at the hazy black and gray 5x7 sheets of nothing. Neither of us spoke. I shuffled for the image that lived in my memory, but it wasn't in the box. No cherry blossoms, no red overcoat, no smiling eyes. Maybe we sent off the wrong roll, she quipped. We only used one, I replied. We continued staring. The dark gray squares, like empty doorways, intended to house the memories we'd made together, now just entrances into nothingness. The memories in our fingertips, unable to develop. Such is the way with chance, with life, with old cameras. She cried. I fumed. Later that day, I sat there, remembering. The image came back to me, still as clear as the moment I captured it. And all I could think to myself was, I'm so glad I lingered.
Nice. I like that story.
I love that piece because it's just kind of a real life piece. Like sometimes things don't happen, sometimes things don't work out, and they're disappointing. And that was a real situation. And even in that mere moment of disappointment, there's something you can draw out of it. There's beauty there. There's some type of longingness or loneliness in that. And I just really enjoyed that piece. And that's a piece that I don't often think of as much. So when I was going back through the book, I was like, oh yeah, I need to write about that. Or I need to read that one today, because that's one that I often forget is in there. Cause it was just such a small thing, you know. We went around town and took some pictures. We got one picture to kind of work. And then we figured out the camera had a little bit of a light flare issue with the mirror or some type of a crack or something.
So letting too much light into.
Yeah. And so it couldn't really develop like it needed to. And, but we just went out and shot some pictures and then sent off the roll and kind of forgot about it. And then it came in like 2 or 3 weeks later and we just opened it up and we couldn't even remember. Like that was the only picture that I actively remembered taking. And the rest of them, we were kind of like, oh man, I don't even remember what we took, you know?
Yeah.
But it was kind of cool just to think about that, because it really was like the image was still in my mind really, really clear. And I was like, okay, I need to write about this. And so I sat down and just kind of wrote that out. And I like finding inspiration in just little moments, a lot of things that people might overlook or miss or not or forget about, you know? And those are the kind of things that I kind of latch onto sometimes.
Yeah, just those little moments you have that most people will just not give the time of day to. It's like, oh, okay, well, it was a crappy thing that happened.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, there's still some cool things out of it, you know.
And it's funny too, because sometimes I have a hard time remembering details of major events in my life, but I remember the little stupid moments of passing things that happened to me that no one else saw, you know. So it's an interesting thing, but
that's interesting. No, I like that. I like that you felt the need to capture that memory and, you know, immortalize it in your book. Because I feel like if we can just stop to appreciate the moments, the good moments, the bad moments, you know, and just the little things, you know, like I feel like that will cause you to stay more grounded in life, you know, by being willing to appreciate the small things, the small victories, the small failures that you can be like, well, now that's a good memory. We can look back on it. It sucked, but like we can look back on it now and be like, well, at least we had that time together where we drove around. We took the photos. Totally. We had a great time. Yeah, the product didn't come out, but let's look at the bright side. We got to spend a whole day together. And
it was still an adventure of trying to figure things out, you know, and the type of person that she is, she finds a new hobby and she dives 100% into it.
I don't know what that's like.
Oh yeah. You probably don't know anything about that, but she was like, we bought the camera and she was like, oh yeah, I'm going to figure this out. And so she went on this deep dive and started learning about how to develop your own film in your bathtub if you don't have a dark room, you know, So that was one of those things. And then when we got the camera and it kind of didn't work right, we were like, well, maybe we should get another one. And then we kind of just didn't forget about it, but we kind of moved on to other things.
Yeah.
So eventually it's going to be one of those things we get back into pretty heavily. But yeah, but it was like you can draw inspiration out of anything. It doesn't matter what it is.
Exactly.
So this last one is the title piece of my book. It's called Say It Softly. And this one is a little bit more just kind of emotional. It's not as much storytelling as much as it is just kind of like the emotion of being in love and all that kind of stuff. So say it softly in the evening, in the twilight moon's dim glow. Say it slowly with my breathing, lifting your head and laying it back to rest. Say it simply in the moment, when the sunlight's all but faded, its canvas washed in indigo. Say it sweetly to the air, so that my ears may snatch it from the darkness and carry the words down to my heart. Say it softly to my soul. Speak the words that give me meaning and make my life seem so well lived. And I'll say it back to you with all the adoration I can give, for you have them all. My ears, my heart, my soul, my very breath. Say it softly once again, and I'll say it back to you until there's nothing of me left. That is the title piece.
Yeah.
And that one is just simply about two people being in love and just enjoying being able to say that to each other. I love you. And, yeah, there's a little imagery there, but it's mostly emotionally driven, and
yeah, I felt that.
It just kind of felt like a good title piece for the book, and it kind of worked out that way, I think. So,
do you think "Say It Softly," that poem, like, captures the idea of the whole book, and that's kind of why you wanted to use that as the title piece?
Yeah, I do. I think it captures it pretty well. It captures the encompassing love between two people, and the fact that because in that poem, it doesn't matter what they've been through or where they are or where they're going, because everything they've done has just drawn them that much closer.
Yeah.
And in that poem, it's a chance, specifically, it's a chance for him to say, everything that's important to you that I have, it's yours. So like, me listening to you, my ears, that's important to you. And those are yours. And my heart is yours. My soul is yours. My words, my very breath, the reason that we are together, is because we're supposed to be together, and you have all of me, basically. And I just, I originally was going to I thought about calling the book Counting Freckles, because there's a poem in there about counting freckles. And I had the woman on the front with freckles on her face, but it didn't look good as a font. And it just kind of was like, it's a sweet poem, but it didn't fully encompass the scope of the narrative. And so I felt like Say It Softly was a better rendition for that. And it turned out pretty good in print too. So yeah.
Nice. So what was your process for kind of writing, or what is your process for writing? How do you feel that lent to your book?
For me, sometimes I have very intentional, like I'm going to sit down and I'm going to like shut everything out and I'm going to write, I'm going to go somewhere and do that. A lot of times, it's me like having a thought and then pulling out my phone and trying to type it into a note real quick before I forget it. And a lot of times it happens like at weird times, like I'll be at work or something, or I'll be driving or something, and I have some idea or some thought or some feeling, and then I'll be like, oh, I need to write that down so I remember it, and I'll pull over or I'll step into the back or something and I'll just type it out really quick. And that way I have it set aside for later, and then I get the idea out and then I don't have to think about it. I go back to what I'm doing, and then I get off work and I get excited because I'm like, oh yeah, I wrote that down. Now I get to go back to it. So that kind of works for me because it makes it feel fresh. I can take an idea and throw it to the side, and then when it comes around full circle, I'm like, oh yeah, I have that. Okay. So I'll go back to that. There's also a really good process called mind dumping. And I mind dump all the time. And usually mind dumping for me is very emotional. So it's like all of the feelings or emotions or stress or anxiety or whatever that's wrapped up in daily life that I either don't want to put on someone else by like fire hosing them with it, or things that I don't feel are important enough to fully like talk to someone about in the moment. I'll go into notes, or I'll go on my laptop or something in Google Docs and just type out a bunch of stuff and get everything all out. Mind dumping usually happens very late at night.
Yeah.
So usually there's been like a full day or a full week or a full month of emotions, and it's the chance to just really get all that emotion out, no matter what it is. And then you have this, this like thing that you've written out of all these feelings, and you can go back to those and you can read through it and you can pull little pieces out, or you can hold on to an emotion and take it and turn it into something.
Yeah.
And that works really, really well for me. It's very hard for me to be methodical and treat it like a job. I know a lot of people that write and they're like, oh yeah, I have a scheduled time. I sit down, no matter what, I'm going to write during this time. And I'm like, okay, well, I understand that, because to some degree, there's no such thing as writer's block. You have to write something.
Yeah.
And even if it's total crap, you have to write something. But for me, I don't always have the ability to say I'm going to schedule this out. And then if I do that, it takes a lot of it takes some of the fun out of it, or some of the spontaneity or the creativity in a way. So I try not to be super methodical or strict with it.
Gotcha. Yeah,
And it just kind of works better for me because there's always downtime. There's always downtime, no matter who you are. Like at some point in the day, there's downtime, and there's a time to pull your phone out and open a note or a document or something and just get your thoughts out or something. And that's usually the best way for me, I think. In regards to like writing specifically, it is nice to be able to go back and see all the poems that you've written over the span of however long, and then find ones that fit in kind of the same theme. And that's kind of what Say It Softly was, just poems written over the course of, 10 years or so. And there are several of them that you can piece together, and they all kind of flow into a narrative. And that's really nice because no matter what you're doing, you're writing and you're stacking poems and you're stacking stories. And then at some point you're going to have enough content that you can pick pieces out and they can go over here, and you can pick other pieces out and they can go over here. So as long as you're writing and getting things out, you can kind of turn projects out of your ammo basically. So that's a really good thing for me. It's just to be, anytime I have a thought or anytime I have time to really sit down and think and mind dump, I'll do that. And then anytime I have to schedule stuff and sit down, I will try and do that and make it a thing. But usually it's like in the moment I'll have a thought and I just sneak away to scribble it down real quick. So yeah,
for sure. No, I think that's great, is allowing yourself the ability to write something down in the moment and not be like, I'll remember that later. Because how many times do we remember that later?
Oh man. Well, and how many times have I like written something down on a napkin or a piece of paper and lost it, Yeah.
We literally have a whole computer in our hand,
seriously.
that we can just write and jot stuff down.
So much easier. And there were some jobs I would have where you weren't allowed to have your phone on you. And so I would find paper or printer paper or receipt paper or something, sticky notes. And if I had an idea at my desk or something, I would just scribble it down real quick.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But then I end up with all these scraps of things that I'm like, I don't even remember what that was. I didn't even have time to write anything down. And so it just works so much better to have your phone. And I use my phone all the time to the point where it would almost be pointless for me to have any other device to write on. Because it would just be like less convenient almost. So it's just the easiest for me right now anyway. Sweet. I would love to get to the point where I had like a room set aside.
Just go run to the room.
It's like, this is my study. I'm going to have a typewriter in there, or something. That would be great, but
that would be awesome, man. Wouldn't that be great for all of us?
Yeah.
So that's great. I was glad we got to hear more of your poems and, got to share that with you all and get to hear a little bit of our process and the poetry that we have written. Anything else you want to share with our listeners about your writings or our writings?
I was going to say a couple of things for inspiration. There's a playlist on Spotify, and Hogan told me about this, and I was going to talk about it just because I forgot about it and I started listening to it today. It's a collection of songs that are 154 BPM. And 154 BPM is considered the like factory reset for your brain.
Oh, really? And
so this person or these people compiled a list of these songs that all fit within that framework. And the thing is called this playlist is called 154 BPM songs for when your ADHD brain needs a factory reset.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
But it really does help. And if you're someone who like struggles with motivation or depression or anxiety or something like that, or you just have brain fog, you can't get your brain to come awake. That's a really good resource. Hogan and I have listened to it together, and I've listened to it in times when I kind of needed to be more alert and things. And there's something about that rhythm of music that kind of helps your brain wake up.
That's interesting. I'm going to have to listen to that.
Yeah, sure. I thought it was really good. And they have all kinds of genres on there, but everything falls within that 154 framework. So
nice.
I thought that was really cool. I was going to share
That
about
is really
that,
cool.
so.
Yeah. So why don't you all listen to that and let us know if it worked for you? Because I'm definitely going to try that, because I don't know what it's been, but this past like week, like I'll be in the middle of something and then forget what I'm doing and move on to the next thing. And then I'm like, why did I leave the garage door wide open all night and it rained? And I'm like, my mind has just been like all over the place. I think I put an empty water bottle back in the fridge the other day and all this just weird stuff. So I think I need to reset my brain.
Yeah. Drink some water, get out of the heat. No.
Yeah.
I've been in the heat too long.
I think you're having heat stroke. That's what's going on.
No, man. Well,
Awesome.
this was a fun episode. I'm really glad that we got to share. I'm really glad you got to read more of your poetry. I know that your book has been out for a while, and it's probably really fun to be able to go back and refresh yourself and tell people about it again. So I'm grateful for that.
Also means I need to put another one out because it's been so long.
Yeah, I hear that.
All right, I'm going to pull up our prompt list.
Oh, yes.
Let's see here. And then I need to add one more person to it here because I got some more prompts put in.
How many prompts do we have total?
That we still haven't used yet. So right now we're at 11, 12, 15.
Okay, I'm going to change my generator up to 15.
Sweet. All right, let me pull up over here because I forgot to add them to the actual spreadsheet, but I have them in our messages too in case those get picked.
We have a spreadsheet.
Yeah, we do. We try to spreadsheet
organized.
things.
And by saying we, I mean Corey. Corey is very organized.
Corey tries to be. Oh, it's in our email. What am I looking? I'm like looking at the wrong thing.
Oh.
Okay. All right, let's pull up our email, and I will chop this down so I'm not just rambling on the audio, or I might leave it in. Why not? Okay. Are you ready?
All right.
Go for it.
Generating number 14.
Ooh, that is Eric Castillo.
Hey.
Let me go to the email. Email. You all heard us talk about Eric on the first episode of this podcast.
Yeah, Eric just had a birthday, actually.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Happy birthday, Eric. Hope everything's going well in Albuquerque, which he gives traveling tours now of like historic downtown.
I thought that was really cool. He's doing walking tours.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Sweet.
All right. Oh, and funny enough, his prompt is, so this is the prompt for next episode, write about traveling somewhere for the first time.
Ooh.
Speaking of traveling, thank you, Eric, for the prompt. So next week we will be writing a poem about traveling somewhere for the first time. I've already got a lot of ideas.
First time. I love that. Okay.
Yeah, I've already got a lot of ideas for that one. So, because I've been a lot of places for the first time.
That's awesome. Sweet. Well, I'm excited to dive into that one. That one's going to be a lot of fun.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening and hanging out. Don't forget, you can give us a rating over at Spotify and Apple Music and wherever else you listen to podcasts.
Yes.
And you can go like, comment on our YouTube channel. Let us know what you like, disliked, and who has better hair now.
No,
we both have short hair. So
mine's like, I look like Shaggy.
Yeah, it is getting a little shaggy. That's true.
Shaggy there.
It is getting a little shaggy. That's all right. You like sweating more than I do, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, so thanks guys for joining in, and we will see you next time. As always, I'm Corey.
I'm Ben.
See you later.
Peace.